Did you know that behind Hollywood's most iconic Golden Age films were visionary directors whose names you've probably never heard? In the next few minutes, you'll discover the hidden geniuses who shaped cinematic masterpieces, crafting unforgettable scenes, coaxing legendary performances, and building the visual language of classic cinema. Stay tuned, because you're about to meet the unsung architects of Hollywood's greatest triumphs. In the early 1930s, as talkies replaced silence, one director quietly mastered both mediums to create some of cinema's most enduring images. Clarence Brown began his career as a cinematographer under Maurice Tourneur, learning the power of light and shadow. When he transitioned to directing at MGM, Brown brought a painterly eye to storytellings, such as in his 1933 film Anna Christie, where Greta Garbo's first spoken words crackled with raw emotion. Brown insisted on deep focus compositions, layering characters in the frame so that every glance and gesture held meaning. His 1935 The Human Comedy displayed his gift for capturing small-town Americana with lyrical warmth, nostalgic train whistles, children playing in dusty streets, and an ensemble cast that felt more like a community than a movie crew. Yet despite his 3 Oscar nominations, Brown's name faded into studio rosters, overshadowed by flashier showmen across the lot at Warner Bros. Mervyn LeRoy emerged as a master of fast-paced storytelling. LeRoy had started as a gag writer at Max Sennett Comedies, learning to pack maximum impact into brief sequences. By the mid-30s, he was directing tough, socially conscious dramas like I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, 1932. His gritty realism, stark prison bars, muddy fields, and a sense of desperation shocked Depression-era audiences and influenced later film noir. LeRoy's 1936 Antony Adverse demonstrated the scope of his ambition, a sprawling epic covering slavery, piracy, and revolution. He built hundreds of period-accurate sets, coordinated exotic extras, and managed multiple units shooting simultaneously across New York backlots. LeRoy had a sixth sense for pacing. Action sequences would burst to life, then ease into quieter moments that deepened our empathy. Despite his box office successes, studios marketed him as a reliable craftsman rather than an auteur, and later film histories often overlook his contributions to genre and technique. At RKO, the prodigious Rauben Mamoulian stood in a class of his own. Born in Georgia and trained in opera direction, Mamoulian understood rhythm and acoustics in ways few filmmakers did. His 1930 Applause, one of the earliest backstage musicals, broke new ground by placing the camera in intimate proximity to singers, using multi-track sound to balance orchestras and voices in real time. He experimented with rotating sets, such as in Love Me Tonight, 1932, allowing Fred Astaire and Maurice Chevalier to dance through shifting environments without interrupting their performance. Mamoulian's visionary work on Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1931, employed stark atmospheric lighting and makeup techniques that transformed Frederick March's face on close-up. Yet after clashes with RKO executives over budgets and deadlines, Mamoulian moved between studios, and his name became a footnote despite his undeniable influence on sound design, camera movement, and genre innovation. At Paramount, Dorothy Arzner defied gender barriers to become the only woman director working steadily in Hollywood from the late 1920s through the early 1940s. Arzner's films like Dance, Girl, Dance 1940 offered complex female protagonists, ballerinas battling exploitation and finding solidarity in each other. She invented the boom mic by attaching a broom handle to a microphone so she could move freely behind the camera, a solution born from her insistence on a director's mobility. In Christopher Strong, 1933, she coaxed Katharine Hepburn into a performance that balanced ambition and vulnerability, using long takes that allowed Hepburn's fierce presence to fill the frame. Despite her trailblazing career, Arzner's role was downplayed by studio press books, and after the advent of World War II, she left filmmaking, leaving behind a body of work that only now is being re-examined by feminist film scholars. Meanwhile, at Universal, Robert Florey applied European expressionist techniques to horror and suspense. Florey's 1932 Murders in the Rue Morgue featured tilted Dutch angle compositions, stark screeching violins, and labyrinthine sets that gave the film a nightmarish quality. His background, directing in French avant-garde film, allowed him to experiment with superimpositions and shadows as narrative devices. Though Universal promoted James Whale as the auteur of its horror successes, it was often Florey who devised the scripts, storyboarded the shock moments, and coached actors through nuanced reactions of terror. His subsequent work at Paramount and MGM on comedies and melodramas demonstrated his versatility, but his early horror experiments remain his most daring legacy. Across town at Columbia, director Frank Capra became synonymous with Capricorn, wholesome, optimistic tales of small-town America triumphing over cynicism. Yet beneath those feel-good veneers lay a filmmaker of great technical skill and emotional precision. Capra's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, 1939, staged a 30-minute filibuster scene shot in a single extended take, employing hidden cuts in actor movement to maintain the illusion of unbroken time. His elegant crane shots in Lost Horizon, 1937, brought sweeping mountain vistas into the sound era, blending matte paintings and miniatures seamlessly. Capra's name remains known, but many of his storytelling and technical innovations, tracking shots that reveal character relationships, sound bridges that segue improbable scene changes, have become so ingrained they're taken for granted. His collaborators, from cinematographer Joseph Walker to editor Gene Havlick, have often gone uncredited in popular accounts, yet they were essential to Capra's success. Further west, at 20th Century Fox, Henry King quietly excelled in adaptations and epics. King's 12 O'Clock High, 1949, later influenced war film grammar, but in the Golden Age, he shaped films like Alexander's Ragtime Band, 1938, and 12 Hours to Live, 1932. King utilized deep focus to create tension in crowded command rooms, while his sensitive direction of child actors in The Black Swan, 1942, revealed the potential for swashbuckling adventures to carry emotional weight. King's skill at balancing spectacle and intimacy was a hallmark of Fox's prestige pictures, but the studio's focus on star names often eclipsed his contributions, reducing him in retellings to a competent craftsman. If you rewind to the late 1920s at Paramount, you'll find Ernst Lubitsch, the so-called Lubitsch touch maestro, who introduced sophisticated comedy with subtle innuendo. His The Marriage Circle, 1924, and Trouble in Paradise, 1932, blended witty dialogue with meticulously staged environments, ornamental doorways, mirrored rooms, and layered compositions that reflected characters' duplicity. Lubitsch's insistence on elliptical storytelling, omitting key scenes and trusting audiences to infer, was revolutionary. Yet Paramount marketed him more as a European import glamour supplier, while glossing over how deeply his narrative economy influenced later screwball comedies. Filmmakers like Preston Sturges and Billy Wilder built on Lubitsch's foundations, but few credit him beyond cinephile circles. In the mid-1940s, one of the most ambitious creatives, Mitchell Leisen, walked the halls of Paramount's art department before rising to director. Leisen's background as a costume and set designer informed his visual approach in films like Hold Back the Dawn, 1941. He orchestrated lighting and costume color to reflect character transformations, Montez's glamorous dresses evolving into somber tones as her illusions faded. Leisen's careful staging of romantic beats in Remember the Day, 1941, demonstrated a choreographer's eye for blocking, using hallways and staircases to punctuate emotional distance. Critics often dismissed Leisen as merely decorative, but colleagues like Billy Wilder credited him with perfecting the visual grammar. Wilder later mastered in his own directorial career. By the late 1940s, as the studio system began to loosen, directors like Joseph L. Mankiewicz emerged from writing backgrounds to assert creative control. Mankiewicz's All About Eve, 1950, was shot in long takes that mirrored the play it adapted, allowing actors to navigate complex dialogue with a theatrical fluidity. His pre-shoot rehearsals resembled stage workshops, and he collaborated closely with cinematographer Milton Krasner to light the New York tea room set as a character itself, shadows lurking beneath ornate chandeliers. Though Mankiewicz later achieved fame as a novelist turned director, his early work at MGM and Fox on Prestige Pictures laid the groundwork for his later triumphs. Yet it remains less celebrated than his writing prowess. These unsung directors shared certain traits: deep expertise in one aspect of filmmaking, be it art direction, sound, or set design, combined with the humility to collaborate within the studio system. They navigated contract constraints, union rules, and studio politics with diplomacy, ensuring that larger personalities like Mayer, Thalberg, or Selznick took the spotlight while their own contributions remained backstage. Yet their artistic fingerprints are evident in every tracking shot, every emotional close-up, every seamless transition that defined Golden Age cinema. In Part 2, we'll dive into 3 case studies: Clarence Brown's epic landscapes, Rauben Mamoulian's soundstage revolutions, and Dorothy Arzner's gender-defying camera work, and explore how their innovations continue to shape modern filmmakers. We'll also hear from contemporary directors who cite these forgotten pioneers as major influences on films you've loved in recent years. Stay with us to uncover the full legacy of Hollywood's unsung directors. Clarence Brown's legacy lives on every time a director composes a landscape, that feels alive rather than staged. In 1939, They Shall Have Music, Brown opens with a tracking shot that pans across an orchestra warming up, each musician tuning their instrument, the camera gliding through the stage like a ghost. That fluidity, achieved with custom-built dollies and meticulous rehearsal, anticipated the camera choreography of Lawrence of Arabia decades later. Filmmakers such as David Lean and Terrence Malick have cited Brown's use of natural light and long takes as direct inspiration for their epic vistas. Rauben Mamoulian's experiments with sound continue to echo in contemporary audiovisual storytelling. His approach in Love Me Tonight, where Astaire's footsteps transition seamlessly into French horns, predated modern sound design techniques like the audio match cut. Directors like Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino employ similar audio-visual juxtapositions. Say, a vinyl record needle dropping into silence to mask a jump cut, because they recognize that sound can be as expressive as image. Mamoulian's insistence on capturing authentic performances, even if it meant bending studio rules, laid the groundwork for on-location synchronous sound recording that became standard with Easy Rider and Apocalypse Now. Dorothy Arzner's pioneering spirit resonates strongly with today's women directors who push technical boundaries. Arzner's famed boom mic rig not only allowed her to move freely behind the camera, it symbolized her challenge to the fixed gender roles of her day. Contemporary cinematographers like Rachel Morrison, the first woman nominated for an Oscar for Mudbound, employ innovative camera movement and personal stabilization rigs to assert their creative presence on set. Arzner's focus on female-centered narratives also prefigured the modern push for diverse representation. Series like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and films like Hidden Figures owe a debt to Arzner's unapologetically female gaze. Beyond individual techniques, these directors share a collaborative ethos that shaped studio culture. MGM's Irving Thalberg once said that a film's final credit producer should really read coach, reflecting his role in uniting disparate talents. Directors like Leroy, Brown, and Arzner effectively functioned as player coaches, equally adept at technical problem-solving and actor motivation. Today's blockbusters, Avatar, The Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all rely on this model. A director who both visualizes grand spectacle and comforts a grieving actor through a 5-hour emotional scene. The lineage from Golden Age studios to modern tentpoles runs directly through these unsung visionaries. The broader lesson from MGM, Warner's, Paramount, RKO, Universal, and Columbia is that a studio's success depends on its ability to integrate crafts under a unified vision. The same principle applies now to streaming platforms. Netflix's House of Cards combined theater-trained actors, cutting-edge camera rigs, and serialized writing rooms to create television that feels cinematic. Amazon Studios learned from Selznick's narrative rigor, using A-list directors like Robert Zemeckis and Patty Jenkins to elevate episodic stories into event series. Disney+, Netflix, and HBO all employ in-house post-production facilities that mirror MGM's sound stages, ensuring quality control from script to screen. As we look back, it's striking how many of these directors began in other departments. Brown as a cinematographer, Mamoulian in theatre and opera, Arzner in art and costume design, Flory in European avant-garde, Leroy in comedy writing. This cross-pollination fostered innovation. A camera operator's eye for movement, a playwright's ear for dialogue rhythms, a costume designer's sense of character through fabric. Modern film schools now emphasize interdisciplinary training, sound design courses for directors, acting workshops for cinematographers, because the Golden Age studios proved that multidisciplinarity breeds enduring creativity. In the final analysis, the on-screen chemistry we celebrate in Bogart and Bacall, Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, or Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, is matched by the off-screen collaboration between directors and crews, whose names are less familiar. The magic of Casablanca derives as much from Michael Curtiz's fluid staging and Anton Grotz's café set designs as from Bogart's whisper and Bacall's smirk. The shadowy alleys of Rick's café were art department constructions. The languid pacing of Bogart's "Here's Looking at You, Kid" relied on careful editing rhythms. Curtiz, another often overlooked MGM director, navigated multiple languages, worked with songwriters on custom background scores, and negotiated complex studio politics, all to bring that single line to life. Fast forward to today's sound stages and CGI volumes. Avatar's floating Hallelujah mountains were digital descendants of MGM's hand-painted backdrops. Modern directors use real-time virtual production techniques pioneered by The Mandalorian. But those methods trace back to Technicolor experiments and rear projection rigs. The invisible scaffolding of cables, tracking markers, and LED screens owes its lineage to the massive backlots and controlled lighting environments perfected by Golden Age directors and their crews. Finally, the story of these unsung directors underscores that film history must be more than a parade of star names and marquee credits. It demands recognition of the craftspeople, the problem solvers, and the innovators whose decisions, where to place a camera, how to frame a face, what music to cue, determined how millions experienced emotion on screen. As contemporary audiences binge-watch miniseries and debate Oscar race foibles, we can honor the tradition of cinematic artistry by seeking out the names in the fine print. Clarence Brown, Rauben Mamoulian, Dorothy Arzner, Mervyn LeRoy, Robert Flory, Ernst Lubitsch, Mitchell Leisen, Joseph L. Mankiewicz, and their equally visionary peers. So next time you watch a classic Hollywood film or stream the latest Netflix epic, remember, the chemistry you marvel at is not merely between actors, but between the actors and the directors guiding them, the departments supporting them, and the unseen hands that shaped each frame. Their legacy lives on with every cut, every cue, and every shot that takes your breath away. To truly appreciate cinema's magic, let us never forget the unsung directors who built the foundation upon which all blockbusters stand.